Well, hello, everyone. My name is Kristin Snowden. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in the state of California. And these webinars are dedicated to discussing all things relationships, because as I always say, we never take classes on how to do relationships. We kind of just learn by role modeling from the adults around us, the culture that we're exposed to, and that can cause a lot of mistakes being made, a lot of suffering and struggling that might go on during our best attempts to do relationships with other flawed human beings. So, a lot of my webinars are focused on what goes wrong in relationships: lying, cheating, sneaking around, hidden addictions, emotional abuse, etc. So, I thought I would take a moment to talk about what could possibly go right in a relationship. We're never really given like these are relationship goals, or we are, but I think we get them through many different cultural filters. As time goes on, our definition of what a good relationship is changes as our values and understandings change. So I kind of wanted to revisit that topic and explore what the relationship experts kind of all collectively say makes a healthy relationship. And by the way, I'm going to use the word healthy, but if that doesn't work for you, it's just kind of like a balanced relationship, a relationship where you feel safe in it, a relationship that might work for you better than other relationships, etc. Because I think it's really important, because many of you here are here because a relationship has not been working. You're in some level of crisis. You're really struggling and trying to move towards change. What's happening right now is not working for you. You might have uncovered deep, really painful betrayal, uncovered lies, unknown addictions. There's maybe just a general lack of safety in your relationship, security, intimacy, or maybe you're just even longing for something more. This relationship with your partner is just not fulfilling and working for you. So I wanted to let you know what the end goal might be. So as I'm saying this, I want to warn you, it might be a little triggering for those of you who are in the trenches right now, in the pain, hearing what a healthy relationship might be or could be can be very upsetting. And there can be a lot of feelings of grief and anger and hurt. But I think it's important we know what we're doing this all for, why we're going to couples therapy, why our partner, we are going to some form of treatment, why we're kind of feeling like we're staying in there and pulling our sleeves up, attending these webinars. We need to know why, like what we're shooting for here. So this is a general list of collections of various relationship experts, what they kind of all say make healthy relationships, healthy attachment, feelings of safety and intimacy. Some of them, just if you want to look back on their work, are some things that, even Dr. Rob Weiss have said what makes healthy recovery, healthy intimacy, healthy connection. I enjoy attachment theorists and interpersonal neurobiologists, such as like Dr. Dan Siegel, couples therapy experts like the Gottmans, Dr. John Gottman and his partner, who literally have relationship labs and they follow relationships over decades and kind of collect data about what contributes to joy and contentment and meaning in people's lives. And I think Brene Brown's work on understanding what helps people feel a sense of belonging and a willingness to be vulnerable, kind of show yourself to the world. I think that work is helpful in understanding what healthy relationships are. Plus, I think this information will help you create a list maybe of a daily inventory, a list that might help you kind of say, are we making progress? We're doing a lot of therapy. My partner's maybe going to treatment or going to meetings. Are we making progress in this direction, or are we stagnant? And that might be a cue for you to like, do I need to tighten up my boundaries somewhere? Do we need to change up treatment or recovery or the plan somewhere? Do I personally need to work on my communication? Like I said, my boundaries. So a list of, healthy versus unhealthy relationships can kind of help you do that check-in with yourself and with your partner. And I also, before I dive into this, want to emphasize that ultimately you have to kind of answer this question for yourself. This is your relationship, your life. So I can kind of quote expert opinion. I can tell you clinically what I've seen. I can tell you what I personally feel like works for me. But ultimately, you have to really sit down, and maybe even after a webinar like this, sit down and journal a little bit and ask yourself, what kind of person do I want to build my life with? What do I want my life and my various relationships to look like? How do I want to feel and live in the context of these relationships? You get to set your own boundaries. You get to decide if you want to stay or go. So just keep that in mind. These are just lists and suggestions. So let's start with the not so great stuff. This is a general list of things I see and what experts cite as signs of unhealthy relationships, imbalanced relationships, so to speak. The most obvious sign is when there is a presence of chronic and consistent lying, abuse, neglect of any kind, period. Neglect, by the way, and we'll talk a little bit more about this concept of attunement, but neglect can be as simple as someone, crying, saying, it's really upsetting me that you don't want to go to couples therapy. I'm really struggling in this relationship. And the person just kind of says, well, get over it. I don't like it. That is neglect, because that's someone who is supposed to be a trusted loved one. You're asking for a need to be met. You're telling them clearly you're in a state of struggle, and they just either don't want to hear it, aren't responding to it, aren't validating it. So that's what neglect is. Unhealthy relationships have regular incidences of shaming and belittling. And so that's kind of a level of like emotional abuse. Now, shaming's, saying that there's basically something wrong with you. You're bad, you're wrong, you're not a man, you're a woman that's too needy, things like that. Those are direct hits at someone in their personified human state, right? There's a big difference. If you've seen any of my Brene Brown shame videos, there's a big difference between saying, you said you were going to call at 6 p.m. You didn't call me at 6 p.m. I'm really upset that you made that choice. Like, I don't like when you make promises and commitments and you didn't follow through with them. That's very different than, you're a liar. You are, you never say you are, a horrible human being. You are a loser that can't say what he's, follow through with what he's going to say. Your sorry excuse for a human at all. Like, there's a big, big difference in the way you communicate wants and needs, or pain and suffering. And by the way, I'm going to pause for a minute to say a lot of these things on the list, I think betrayed partners and addicts, when they're in their not so great moments, will do these things just by accident, by reactivity. But the idea is that once you know better and you become aware that these are patterns or these are not so great parts of yourself that happen when you're in crisis or struggle, the idea is that you're just supposed to take that information and try to move out of it slowly and progressively. So this list isn't meant to be shaming you, saying you're doing a horrible job at relationships. It just, again, might be a cue that you need to kind of, take a step back and figure out a better way to engage with your partner. Okay, so next is in an unhealthy relationship, there's definitely a presence of a power over and maybe a power under. So one or the other is constantly questioning their value and worth in the relationship, the other person's value and worth. There might be some game playing. There's maybe regular threats, if you don't do this, I'm, going to leave, or I'm not going to talk to you, stonewall you. You don't get to be invited to something. There's ultimatums. Now, again, sometimes these are done in context of you can do it in a way that there's consequences. Like if you choose not to go to 12-step meetings or choose not to go to treatment, then I don't think that this relationship is going to feel very safe for me. And I don't think that this is going to be a very palatable place for me to stay. So I'm going to need you to leave. So there's a difference between having conflict and adversity and setting boundaries and consequences versus threats. I'm going to divorce you and I'm going to take all your money and I'm going to leave with all the kids and everything. And you're going to, I've seen relationships where there's just constant threat. I'm going to turn you in for this. I'm going to shame you publicly for this. Trying to basically coerce the person out of fear. I'm going to leave you and then I'm going to leave you with no money and you're not going to have anything or anybody, and who's going to love you. Quid pro quo. Quid pro quo is the idea that I do something to get something. There's transactional. So, I'm going to go do this thing for my partner, but that means that they need to forgive me for the thing that happened yesterday. And there's this idea that one behavior is supposed to cancel out the other, instead of actually talking about the fact that that behavior that you did that really hurt my feelings. I need to understand why you did it and why you ignored the boundary, why you didn't make better choices. So this idea of there's this transactional relationship. I have sex with you, so you stop complaining, or I do this for you to make up for this other thing that I did that you were angry at me for not doing. Those are attempts to kind of control through manipulation, not through understanding one another and giving each other time and space and validation. In the unhealthy relationships, there's what we call chameleonizing. That's my favorite word. If it's not patented or copyrighted, I need to copyright that word. But I use that word for helping, chameleons, when they come into an environment, they can kind of change the color of their skin. And a lot of us, some of our superpowers are being able to walk into a room, assess, okay, they need me to be smart in this room. Okay, they need me to be funny in this room. Okay, they need me to be very serious in this room. Okay, they need me to be dismissive and kind of joking or whatever. A relationship shouldn't be, I'm assessing the situation and I'm changing who I am, what I want to say, what I'm not going to say, all based on trying to get a very specific outcome, right? I'm afraid to set boundaries. I'm afraid to set consequences because I'm afraid he's going to get angry and leave. Or, I'm afraid to tell her that I relapsed, or that I had this moment that I know is in my middle circle that I should tell her about, that we agreed I would tell her if this person contacted me again, but I'm afraid she's going to get too angry. So that's that idea that instead of being me and transparent, and also knowing that we can talk through adversity, work through conflict, I just start changing who I am, what I'm willing to say, what I'm going to be in all my different environments to avoid conflict, to kind of create a facade of connection and please and appease everyone. And I'm not really being myself. In unhealthy relationships, there's often you move from just one intense moment to the next. So, or the converse, complete opposite end is that there's total disconnection and total absence of engagement between you and the other person entirely, right? So you're just making decisions on your own. You're not asking, you don't have a teammate, or you are just moving from one argument, one conflict to maybe we're just ignoring, we're tiptoeing around the big issues, and then all of a sudden another big argument. And you just find the pace of the relationship just moves constant, intense moment to the next intense moment, and then just tiptoeing on eggshells trying to avoid. And because of that, there's also no repair attempts. This is a huge part of healthy versus unhealthy relationships, is can the relationship engage in conflict successfully? That's a huge indicator whether or not a relationship is going to feel safe. And I'll talk about that more. But when there is a rupture in the relationship, there's no attempt to repair. That is not a good sign. There is absence of honesty, transparency, vulnerability, and intimacy. And there is more sense of a fear of harm, distrust, than the complete opposite, which is that I have a teammate and a person. There's also in an unhealthy relationship a sign that it's not going very well is there's a very strong focus on what's wrong with your partner, what's wrong with the relationship. There's just a really big wall of criticism where I am just incapable of seeing anything good about what's happening, anything good about this person. The Gottman say, there's really bad red flag signs that a relationship's in big trouble, and that's a huge sign. Is how your filter, your view of your partner in the relationship is. So let's shift over to what the goal post is. What we're paying the money for, what we're sitting in these webinars for, what we're talking about our feelings and doing groups and stuff is because we're trying to move slowly to this side, which is the healthier, more balanced, more safe, more connected relationships. Now, the best way I've tried to teach clients about what is healthy relationships, and this goes for all relationships, not just your partner, but like children and family and friends, is for those of you who follow me, I like to kind of think of us not as like just, hi, I'm Kristin, but I'm a nervous system. Like I have a system that's constantly like scanning for potential threats. I get really happy when I hear great news. I get really scared when I hear scary things or bad things. Anytime life is not predictable and consistent, my nervous system gets shuffled around. And I kind of work off the feedback loop system of other nervous systems around me, their body language, their voice, their choices, their behaviors. So I define a healthy, balanced, safe relationship as two nervous systems, right? Two humans that for the most part, they are more successful in co-regulating themselves, each other, than dysregulating themselves. So meaning I feel, for the most part, 'cause by the way, humans will create conflict and there'll be, altercations, disagreements, ruptures in the relationships. But for the most part, I can feel like I'm engaging healthily with my partner or someone else if I find that they more often help me feel calmer, more stable, help me enjoy positive events in a greater way, rather than every time I engage them, I feel more dysregulated. I feel more confused. I feel more thrown off. I feel more in a buzz rather than grounded. So that's kind of the main overall measurement that I think is a good way of tracking that. This other person in my life helps with emotional regulation and is a medium with which I feel more connected to myself, to this world, to these experiences that we have on a daily basis. The other way I talk about it is that they help me create a safe space and place with respect, but also accountability and containment, right? Because they have their own boundaries and consequences that allow kind of me to do me, let me be me, and I have a secure base to launch from. That secure base is that safer co-regulating pair bonded state with my partner, where they're kind of the witnesses to my experiences, and I'm a witness and a companion to their experience. I'm going to note that, Dr. Rob and other people like Tatkin talk a lot about this really well, which is pair bonded people who have this secure launch, the secure place to launch into life with. find that they are able to navigate good and bad experiences more successfully. So meaning they tend to choose healthier choices, right? They phone a friend, they go for walks, they do deep breathing, exercising rather than have a double life of addiction, substance abuse, extreme rage, overworking to exhaustion, etc. And they tend to report, those with secure attachment, that they have feel more fulfilled and have more meaningful relationships. And another interesting thing is that those with secure base feel like they are more willing to take healthy risks, right? Like try to go get that job that, they've been dreaming of getting, or pursue these really great hobbies, or pursue some kind of creative outlet, healthy risks, right? Not like I'm going to try to drive off or a cliff or something like that, or jump out of the car at the last minute, not those kind of risks. So let's talk about the components that lead one to feel safe and secure, balanced in a relationship. I think Dan Siegel, he's an interpersonal neurobiologist. I talk about him sometimes. He's actually, I think, a professor at UCLA, so here in the LA area. He talks about the 4 S's. These are things, the 4 components that people, and not just a husband and wife or a relationship dyad, primary partners, but also parents raising children, the 4 S's that people need to feel safe and secure in relating with others. And they are safety, seen, soothed, and secure. So safety is required by our human species. We're one of the only species, humans, that require a sense of safety to feel intimate. I don't know if you've watched any of those National Geographic shows, but like sex and reproduction can get a little violent and gnarly and crazy in the wildlife world. Now, granted, because of some trauma wiring, sometimes that is what happens to humans, and they'll highly correlate violence and intensity and threats with intimacy. But for the most part, human species, in order to want to be intimate, and it's not just physical intimacy, but emotional intimacy and intellectual intimacy, spiritual intimacy, there needs to be a sense of safety. And safety is all about 2 pretty specific, easy things. Well, not easy, but it's predictability and consistency. So anytime the body experiences something out of the realm of like, ooh, I didn't see that coming, or this is out of my normal routine, I didn't expect this, I'm not sure how to deal with this thing, your body will feel unsafe. It doesn't mean that you can't get through it. In fact, most of life is about us learning how to navigate when things happen that are not predictable and not consistent. But if we have safe, attached people with us, they can help us successfully navigate it. So something also that helps you feel safe in the relationship is, like I said, when there is repair, when anyone behaves out of the realm of predictable or consistent. So in a relationship, do you want to know when you need to have a conversation? Every time either you or that other person did something that was inconsistent or unpredictable to their just normal behavior. When you look back on why things are so upsetting with your partner, it'll be like, how could you have done that without thinking about me and like how I would react to that? Or I didn't marry someone who made those bad choices or prioritized their decisions in that way. I'm so shocked that you would prioritize your decisions that way, or ignore these values, or ignore these goals. What's underlining all that is you did not act predictably or consistent to like the person that I thought you were. And that's a major struggle. And anytime that happens in the relationship, there has to be repair. And if you do not repair, your body can experience that as betrayal. or definitely like, okay, you're not someone to trust and bring into my world. And also, you're not going to experience safety in a relationship if there's a more of a sense of fear and threats present, such as, will this person lie? Will this person abandon me? Will this person reject me? Will they harm me, literally harm me, financially harm me, emotionally harm me? You're not going to feel safe in the relationship unless those exist. Next category is seen. Dan Siegel uses the word attunement. Are you able to use your super ninja skills to connect with their body language, their tone of voice? I've told you, if you follow these webinars, I joke that we as humans have superpowers. We have the ability to sense someone's kind of body language, and if it's jerky and I have fast movement, and it upregulates my body as a cue to say, like, something's wrong. It's just kind of a natural thing. We have like mirror neurons where we kind of pick up the energy of somebody else. It's made for us to feel safe and notice if there's like a threat going on, but we can actually hone that skill to become attuned with our partners, because, we see the baseline, we see when they're stable, we see when they're super dysregulated, and I can use that skill to attune to, are you having a hard day? What's going on? Right now I have 2 female teenagers, and there's a lot of attuning, just they can walk into the car and slam the door and be like, "Whew, how's it going today?" Or just even just the breaths that they're taking or the movement they make. That's a really important part if we want to move into the healthy relationship world, is we need to connect with our own bodies and understand the energy we're putting off when we're in a particular state, but also use those skills to kind of attune to what's going on with them, connect with their body language, their tone, kind of the energy of what they're putting off, and come to understand their inner life. And of course, all those things you need to start connecting with yourself, internally, before you can start doing it with another person. It's a practice. Seen. If I want to be seen, I need to be able to listen, to understand, and not to respond and defend when I'm communicating with another person, but I need to be around a partner who knows how to listen, to understand me, not constantly come up with a response or defense or anything like that. So the communication has to be, I'm just listening to hear you. I'm listening to understand. I don't necessarily need to agree with you. I'm just supposed to understand your inner life, what's going on with you, what's your perspective. So there also has to be a willingness to be vulnerable, share intimacy intellectually, emotionally, physically, and ability, therefore, then to approach conflict head on. I told you this conflict part is really, really important. A lot of the work that people sometimes have to do once, the addiction is stabilized, once the crisis is managed, is learning how to engage in current and future conflict and adversity in an effective way. Soothed, that's the third one. Soothing is really important. It's connected to the first 2 things, right? Me, again, internally understanding what's going on with me. If I'm feeling dysregulated, I'm stressed, I'm afraid, I'm angry, I'm excited and happy, and being responsible for knowing what I need to do to take care of myself and my inner state, but also know that that's what pair bonding is for. That's what people in our lives are also for. They're supposed to be walking alongside of us to co-experience and co-regulate what we're going through emotional touch. There's studies that show that if I come in and I have a calmer heart rate and calmer stress hormones, and I start talking quietly with slow body movements, I can lower your heart rate, calm your nervous system down. So there's an importance, after you attune with someone, to start using your superpowers of attunement to say, okay, I need to ask questions. I need to stay curious. Do they like back rubs? Do they need eye contact? And really start learning what's my responsibility for soothing and caring for needs that I have, and what I need to do to ask for others to help me in soothing. I need to go for a walk. Do I need to go for a walk by myself, or do I need to go for a walk with somebody else? I'm feeling really upregulated now. So anything I say, it might not go very pretty. So I need to take a break, but then we do need to come back and talk about this later, because it is something I'm upset about. And then lastly, secure is the fourth S. And when those first three things, safety, there's a sense of safety in this relationship. I feel seen in this relationship. We have the ability I can soothe myself, and I can ask to help to be soothed when necessary. Those create senses of safety where boundaries are respected on both sides, right? We can respect that you are an autonomous human being. You have your own passions and goals and life. I have the same. But we also understand that we've made commitments and promises to each other as partners to prioritize helping the other person feel safe, help the other person, live their life in a way that helps them feel fulfilled. You respect that I am me, and, I have to do my life. I have to sleep with myself at night, but I am part of a dyad, right? A two-person system or an entire family system, and make decisions from that place. And I think another really important sign of a healthy relationship, besides repairing conflict, is when someone is able to share their good, bad, light, and dark, that we've created this sense of safety and intimacy and vulnerability. So I'm not just willing to go to my person when I am really excited because I have this really great news, but also I can come and be like, I feel like a failure as a parent. I feel like I am actively screwing up my children. And I'm maybe looking for just like validation and comfort and just a place to like have somebody listen to me. And I know that they're not going to take that and be like, well, yeah, you always do X, Y, and Z, right? And that there's this understanding, we screw up sometimes and say stuff like that, but there's this understanding that the person's not going to take my fears and my vulnerabilities and weaponize it against me and use it to hurt me. So I'm going to close with just a few little elements too that I like to see in relationships, kind of, relationship goals, #relationship goals, is that there's this sense that you are teammates, right? That you are not arguing to change the other person or to prove that you're right or wrong, but that there's this idea that there's been an inconsistency here. You've done something that's been kind of unpredictable, or I've done something that was off the Richter scale of predictability. And we're trying to kind of understand what just happened there, where it went wrong, how we could kind of clean it up. But for the most part, the two of us are moving along this path as teammates. As part of that, there's this sense that I need to, and I should want to turn toward that person. The Gottmans talk about this, and this is a great little mini book when you're at this phase of wanting to work on the relationship, right? You're out of the crisis and you're stabilized. But this idea of little ways in a single day or in a week where you can make movement to turn towards that person. And hopefully that person will turn towards you. That rebuilds trust, helps you see that you can survive vulnerability, you can weather conflict, and you can weather the storm of disagreements and still survive and come out closer and more intimate. Another part of the teammate part is that there's mutual respect. One is not more powerful than the other. There's this sense of kind of equality and fairness. I think I said when it's an unhealthy relationship, there's this constant questioning. Why does this person even love me? They're telling me all the things that are wrong with me, or conversely, I'm in a state where I constantly feel like I do everything in this relationship. What do they offer me? a healthy relationship is the opposite of that. I know he or she's flawed. I'm definitely flawed, but for the most part, I think that we're doing the best that we can. There's this willingness to give each other the benefit of the doubt. They're not your worst critic, but someone who knows you well enough and can use that understanding of knowing you to sometimes challenge you, give you different perspectives, kind of remind you, hey, you said this was your goal and you're deep in the trenches of it now, but I'm just going to remind you, this is what you said you wanted to do. So you could quit or you could change the path, but I'm reminding you back in the day, this is what you wanted, right? That's really ideal. And also healthy relationships have a healthy balance of not being responsible for the other person, right? So I can't wrap you in bubble wrap and keep you safe all the time. But because you're my partner, because I've made a commitment to want to turn into you, I want you to feel safe. So when I've done something that has ruptured that safety, I want to listen and understand and try to adjust my behavior and my choices if it helps you feel more safe, seen, soothed, etc. But also at the same time, because I'm not 100% responsible for it, I can help you, realize there's some things you can do on your end to feel safer and soothed, that there's other people can meet your needs in a healthy way, other behaviors, other choices, etc. And that's the general picture. There's a few authors that I think that just get things succinctly in a way, we're humans, we have a lot of information going on in our brain. So I need like succinct sound bites if I'm going to practice something so complicated, which is interacting with humans every day. And I think the Gottmans and like a Dan Siegel and Brene Brown, I just find that they give you these little sound bites that allow you to kind of hold on to them in a given day and engage your partner in a different way. So yeah. And again, I'm going to emphasize, 11 months in recovery, when the S hits the fan, this is not going to help you. In fact, if you try to bust this out, it would fall on deaf ears. There's a lot of anger and hurt and resentment and everything. So the moving towards the healthy relationship part tends to happen after crisis is managed. If you're the addict, or the betrayer, you have done your own personal work, and then it can be so much more effective and genuine too when you try to repair the relationship. So yeah, thank you for sharing.
Yeah. How do you get a partner to get into recovery when they are not willing? He says he is doing recovery, had no time in groups, etc. You can't make anybody do anything.
Yeah, it's unfortunately sometimes there's got to be you have to make sure you're focused on yourself. Does this feel safe? Does this feel right? Do I feel like we're making progress towards the healthy relationship column or not? And sometimes just you being part of the dyad system, right? When you start turning in a different way, making different choices, it changes the entire system around. Not always, but sometimes that's what it takes, is, you having different responses, you setting up different boundaries and consequences. That's kind of the only way that you can help them see, no, they are not in recovery, and no, this is not okay.
And the last one, I have found my spouse says things and I can ignore. He is very immature and ego fragile. And she said, I have learned to ignore his immature thoughts and statements, but any advice on that?
Yeah. So when I was saying about what a healthy relationship is not needing to chameleonize or alter yourself. So often we say when things are said that are immature, often they can be without a conscientiousness about my heart, what might be offensive and hurtful to me. Or when I hear fragile ego, I hear I don't feel safe to be honest about what I'm experiencing because his ego is so fragile, he'll just go into he or she will go into defensive mode and not be able to hear anything that I'm saying. Those are not aligned with being able to be fully seen, share my life, share my experiences, receive validation, and then conversely, me do the same thing or allow the space for my partner to do the same thing. I think a lot of people box up experiences with their loved ones and just be like, oh, I ignore that, or oh, he or she's just having a bad day. I am telling you, I see that all the time. And that doesn't just wither away into the ether. It locks into your nervous system and provides more evidence to your nervous system that says, this person is not one to trust. Don't be vulnerable with them. Share your thoughts and feelings with other people, but not this one. And that does not build intimacy.
She had spot on, Kristin. I get it. And I am and will be okay. Great way to end this. Thank you so much, Kristin. We'll see you in 2 months. So she'll be back. She's alternating months with us. So you'll see her again in
on the
July.
odd month.
On the odd month. On the odd months. There you go. All right. Bye, everybody.
Okay.
Thank
Goodbye,
you.
everyone. Thank you for joining.